This is Dead Serious, a show about short horror stories worthy of discussion. I am Dead Palette, the rusted road sign pointing towards a beautiful idea people have forgotten. At this moment in non-time, we're tackling a creepypasta called Fallout 3 Number Station. The way this is going to work is that I am going to, unedited, read this story and comment on its quality, interjecting myself into the story. I'm going to do this while poking fun at it, but not really trying to goof off. I don't want to be unconstructive. I want this to be entirely constructive, even if it is insulting at times, because to be constructive, sometimes you gotta be insulting. This story on the creepypasta.com has a 8.8 out of 10, so this is coming pretty highly recommended. I have read this story previously, and I think my feelings about this story will be bared out as I read it. So without further ado, Fallout 3 Number Station. Fallout 3 contains several in-game radio stations. The most diverse and important station is Galaxy News Radio. Many players of the evil persuasion know that you can kill Three Dog, and he will be replaced by the technician Margaret. If you don't play the game, this is all true. I'll confirm all of this. This is all factual. She's not a charismatic person and has very little to say, seeming to not enjoy her new announcing duties. She also never appears in person, and therefore cannot be killed. Once Three Dog is dead, you're stuck with Margaret. What most players do not know is that under certain circumstances, GNR will become a numbers station. A numbers station is a station that broadcasts an unusual coded message. Many of these exist in real life, and some hypothesize that they are nuclear retaliation control networks. Network? I think that this should have been pluralized, right? Anyway, taking their word, simply check Wikipedia for more information about these old broadcasts as they relate to the real world, back to Fallout. So, taking their advice, you can go to Wikipedia and look up number station. In doing so, you will see that this is indeed a real thing, unless Wikipedia is lying to us, as it is prone to do from time to time, but this seems pretty reliable. It says that they are radio stations that use often synthesized speech, so like, 1, 2, 3, like the thing you hear on the phone, or Hatsune Miku. It's often translates, pitch shifting, keying, and frequency shifting, keying, and Morse code transmissions. All a bunch of shit I don't know the least bit about. But I'm going to take it at its word that this is a real thing. This is very important to Creepypasta, that this is a real thing. So moving on. No one is really sure which actions are needed to hear number stations in Fallout 3. It appears that you must kill Three Dog, because no one has ever reported hearing the number station with him still alive. It also appears that you have to skip over the quest, Galaxy News Radio, where you help boost the signal so that the station can be broadcast further than the immediate DC area. This is easy enough to do with either a speech check or simply using the Fallout Wiki to look up where to go next and advance the main plot. So, in the game, there are different attributes that you can have. So if you put all your points into speech, you'll have certain times when they'll check to make sure that you can, talk your way out of certain situations. So that's what they refer to when they say a speech check. And Fallout Wiki, I hope you can figure out what that means. It's just the wiki for all the Fallout games. It has a bunch of information about the Fallout games on it, and it's actually pretty helpful if you like these games. Back to the story. Finally, will remain such for the rest of the game. Finally, you definitely have to destroy Raven Rock. This is the actual trigger to turn GNR into a number station, and it will remain such for the rest of the game. However, the vast majority of players who perform these 3 actions still continue hearing the standard GNR broadcast, so there must be several more requirements, as the community has yet to isolate. So, I'm kind of conflicted about this aspect of the story. It's really not all that difficult for those with the know-how, not myself, but those with the know-how to go into a game and decipher what's coming from where. It is difficult from the player side to isolate these triggers, figure out what causal links there are in a video game to make one thing do another thing, for sure. But this whole idea of there being a hidden number station is never explained away. So, like, if you are looking through the coding, you would find this information about the number station, even if you wouldn't necessarily know how to trigger it, from my understanding. You would be able to find what's on the number station and what the number station is, the coding for it, and all of this kind of stuff, all of the files for that. That would be not all that difficult to locate. And this is kind of the Achilles heel of the story. So once you get past this, I think the story has a lot to offer, but I just have to ask, how do you explain this away? This might not be a problem for a lot of people who listen to this, and I understand it, but it's not a minor detail to me. You do have to ask, how are they hiding the number station aspect of the game in the coding? Is it supernatural? If it's supernatural, you can kind of excuse it, but let's continue on, and maybe we'll touch on this more. If you're lucky enough to have hit upon the right set of circumstances just after destroying Raven Rock, you will get the message, radio signal lost, and a few seconds later, radio signal found. You cannot, however, listen to GNR yet because you didn't boost the signal and are out of range of the broadcast at the exit of Raven Rock. Raven Rock is a place in the game, by the way, obviously. Luckily, Raven Rock is situated in the mountains and is right near one of the few places outside of DC you can get high enough to catch the signal. So far, the confirmed locations to hear GNR's number signals are 1. Within the immediate DC area, obviously. This is true for the regular GNR throughout the game. 2. The top of the Ferris wheel at Point Lookout. 3. The tops of some of the SATCOM arrays you can climb in the northwestern map area. 4. The roof of Tenpenny Tower. Though this may be within normal broadcast range anyway. Feel free to play test and get back to me on this. No, you get back to me on this. I like the call to action in that, where he's telling you, the listener, to test this out for yourself. That I really like. That's something that's really small that I think lends credence to the story. Part of the appeal of Creepypasta is the fact that you can kind of participate in this stuff. And even though you're not going to actually test this out and you have to be a mark to actually think there's going to be anything you're going to find there, it is a cute idea. But honestly, it's not that hard to get to Tenpenny Tower in the game. If you're going to be killing Three Dog anyway, you're going to be going through an evil playthrough probably, so you shouldn't have any problem getting into Tenpenny Tower. So that is also kind of strange, but again, points for the call to action. 5. The highest point of Broken Bridge on Erifu, again, may be within broadcast range anyway. 6. On some of the highest points of the mountain tops in the area near Raven Rock. This is obviously your easiest chance to first listen to the number station. Alright, when you tune in, you will hear an old familiar voice. Three Dog, despite the fact that you killed him earlier. However, you will quickly notice that he does not seem to be in character. So I guess it's not technically Three Dog, but the voice actor, Eric Dellums. He reads a series of numbers in a monotone, depressed-sounding voice, much like me. He always recites a list of single digits between 9 and 12 characters long. For example, 93791720034. Never. Man, that's a weird typo. That's a weird typo. It says ever use the multi-digit numbers like 11 or 40. But I think they mean to say he never. These numbers are followed by widely varying lengths of Morse code. This is then followed by the song, I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire. All other music tracks seem to be inactive on the number station. So, pausing for a second. The idea that Three Dog's voice actor would come back into the game and recite these numbers, I think is pretty goddamn interesting. That is an original idea. That honestly kind of gives me cold chills. And I think this is something that a lot of younger, and not to be insulting, but more naive creepypasta listeners and readers, and I love that I went to listeners first, because that's the only fucking way you kids listen to fucking Anyway, you have to be able to, as a reader and as a listener, enjoy the parts that you enjoy, and still be critical of the parts that you don't like. There's nothing wrong with letting a story sweep you away and just forgetting its flaws, of course, but I think that there is a lot of merit to looking at this kind of stuff critically and being able to say, even though I don't like this part and it's kind of crippling to me, the idea that, where are you hiding these files that people can't find them? And where are all the YouTube videos of people, discovering this stuff? Because it's not happening. Outside of that, the idea of this voice actor being in the game, doing this thing in a very monotone, depressed way, that is a very vivid image and puts you in a specific mindset of like, what is this voice actor, Eric Dellums? How is he reacting to reading these numbers in the booth, in the recording booth? How is he reacting to this? What does the recording booth look like at that moment? It makes you question who is telling him to do this and all of these sorts of questions that put you into that conspiratorial mindset that I really enjoy that. That's a wonderful place to put someone, to creep them out, to make them feel weird. Conspiracy is a great way, getting that conspiratorial part of the mind active is a big goal in creepypasta. Something that I think, if you can achieve it, is brilliant. So, I think that the part about I don't want to set the world on fire is a little, and I do mean just a little, heavy-handed. But the song is in the game, so that is less of a problem, and it is speaking to what the story is going to be. Spoiler, is speaking to what the story is going to be talking about. So I think it does a pretty nice job in that regard this is the crux of the story, and it's going to develop more, but I really like that idea. Anyway, all their music tracks seem to be inactive on the number station. The Morse code was the easiest part of the mystery to crack, as the code is widely available, and many people actually know it by heart. We quickly had a list of great numbers a great number of messages in English. Man, Brandon, learn to read. Some sounded completely mundane and even comical, such as, "Wash the car today, maybe Chinese for dinner," or, "Have you watched my YouTube video yet? I uploaded myself kicking bums in the nuts." So this it brings to mind a question. We had a list of a great number of messages in English. Who is we? This is an important question to answer, and it doesn't really need to be any more complex than, me and a group of people I met online are discussing this. But explaining that there are these discussions going on, and who we is, even though it's a minor detail, and it could be literally just anything. It could be, me and my friends in our basement, explaining that is very important. It gives you an idea of who's writing this, of the voice of the person behind this, and we're not quite getting that. And it's such an easy thing to put in, so why leave it out, is my question. So, the idea of these mundane ideas being put through of, do you want to get Chinese for dinner? That's really cool. I like that. Mundane things are the best friend of creepypasta because you want to hide creepy things and unsettling things inside of your more mundane world, so that's valuable. You may be saying, but wait, YouTube doesn't exist in the Fallout universe. And you're right. As far as we could tell, who's we, all of our messages sounded like they were based in our reality, somewhere near present day. Some of the messages, however, are quite sinister, such as, "The Queen died today. The world mourns. As on days like these, we are all Brits." Or, "I can't believe they actually done it. Not long left. the noise. I can't take the noise anymore. I have a pistol in the attic. So this is where you're getting the whole, I don't want to set the world on fire a bit. Normally, when I'm reading a story like this, the idea of that's quite sinister, and you're telling the reader, the listener, that something is sinister, I think is cheap. But here we're getting this informal way of telling us. It's this person who's writing this is like, yo, I found some sinister shit. And so that kind of allows the writer to say sinister. The writer is telling us how we feel, and that's okay because it's a person. And it's a rather human person. We are starting to get a sense of our narrator, and they're very much so ingrained. They're deep into the world of Fallout and Fallout's world building. So much so that they're not explaining certain aspects of Fallout, and I think that that's valuable. That's a character flaw. But on the subject of this message about the noise, that I find very intriguing. It reminds me of The Langoliers by Stephen King in a way, and that's a very apocalyptic story as well. So continuing on. Just recently, the players on the wiki forums noticed a message that brought to light the meaning of the messages. Again, if they just said that this is a group of people on the wiki forums, which they're not saying here, this is another group of people. If they just link these two things together, then I'm happy. He was reading a thread that collected all known messages, transposed from Morse to English, and saw the line 12055282010. What are you talking about? You'll be missed. He realized this referred to the recent death of Gary Coleman. In the quickly realized the numbers were the time and date of death. That's a little bit clunky. He immediately scanned through the messages to try and find more examples of this apparent future telling by a game that's more than a year old. The next message he read shocked him and pushed him to enlist the aid of others to decipher the codes. The message was 94542202010. Accident in the Gulf, several dead. Oil spill apparently averted. He realized this was the BP oil explosion and the erroneous day one assessment that the well was not leaking. So, this game is telling the future. That's great. I love this kind of stuff. I loved it in Dead Bart. I love it in this story. The idea of like talking about Gary Coleman is kind of funny because he's just such a punchline. But to the heart of the matter, this doesn't tell us when we're having this discussion. We just know that it's more than a year after Fallout came out. I would like a little bit more concrete dates. And I know that I'm sounding like a stickler for this kind of stuff. Like, why do you need to know that? To me, this stuff is very important because you're telling it in an almost journalistic way, in a blog way, and we need as many details as possible, even if those seem irrelevant to someone. You can hide a lot of weird details in there, and nailing down as much of the reality as possible really does set, this story is real. Anyway, moving on. From this point on, all number stations will be transcribed as times and dates. All times were given in-game in military format and remain so in this document. Number stations in the Fallout Wiki boards began looking over the messages to see what else we could learn. We quickly found that most of the dates were after the game had been released, yet oddly, some were from the past. 2215, April 15th, 1865. He's dead, and the blame will probably be placed on the actor, Booth. Johnson better not cheat me out of the payment. This shed new doubt on the official version of the Lincoln assassination. So this has worldwide ramifications. That is really cool. Man, I really wish there was some way to explain away why they can't find the number station in the data. As a community, we started quickly compiling interpretations of the messages. of the mods, the site summarily banned everyone who had posted in it, or even read the thread. All references to number stations was removed from the Fallout Wiki, and filtering software was put into place to prevent reposting of any relevant information. A few people, however, are trading emails and slowly finishing translations of the remaining messages and putting dates on to the existing ones. So this idea of this community forming, being removed from the Fallout Wiki, that should probably be touched on a little bit earlier, I think. Because again, these details are important to understand who is telling us this stuff. So, basically existing ones. The Queen has died today. The world mourns, as on days like this, we are all Brits. 4:02, March 19th, 2004. Have you watched my YouTube video yet? I uploaded myself kicking bums in the nuts. 24/16, December 24th, 2012. I can't believe Britney actually won an Oscar. 21:33, February 27th, 2023. I can't believe they actually done it. Not long left. They were warned, but they just had to keep pushing the boundaries of science. A little heavy-handed. The noise. I can't take it anymore. The light. Dear God. The universe is slowly unraveling around us. I'm not going to wait for death. I have a pistol in the attic. This is the only message not preceded by a string of numbers. So, we're getting the idea that this is the end. Again, the whole, who speaks that way? They've pushed the boundaries of science too far. Like, are you a 1920s actor? That's a little bit much. But the rest of this is really chilling. It's really good. It may be worth noting that the latest date on any of these messages is 1/27, July 6, 2027. Now, the Creepypasta, now Creepypasta.com is asking me to rate this story, rate this pasta. The rating right now is 8.8 out of 10, with over 1,200 people voting. I will rate this something. I have a problem with sort of rating these kinds of stories. Because if you can pick apart any part of it, it kind of nullifies the story for me. And I know that that's a radical position for some people. I really like this story. For all of its flaws, I love this story. But it's easy to pick apart, and that kind of destroys its creepypasta-acity, if you will. Even though this story is asking to be judged as a creepypasta. So someone like myself, who's super serious about this really irrelevant thing, is kind of put in a dilemma. How do you rate a story like this? How do you deal with something that is hitting on many things that are really good and then just really failing on other fronts? My answer has been to rewrite these kinds of stories. You can find one such rewritten story by looking for Dead Bart Redux.